Vadi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right. I'm still just freshly back from our retreat in the mountains of Colorado. And we went over parts of this talk there, but just enjoyed a fantastic, really fantastic week of just refreshing spiritual insight and more than anything, a real sense of Sangha that is fresh in my heart and fresh in my mind that I am really appreciating. Really enjoy. Uh-huh. Fantastic, really fantastic week of just refreshing.
Yeah, everything is echoing again. So I'm going to stop everything and restart the whole thing.
That is fresh in my heart and fresh in my mind that I am really appreciating. Really.
It's echoing, Swami.
Yeah, I think it's probably trying to live stream and do the Zoom at the same time. That doesn't look like it's going to work.
Do we need to get out and come back on again, Swami? Do you think?
No, I don't think the trouble's on any of our side. I think it's just exactly that. They're trying to live stream and trying to do the Zoom at the same time. And I think the live stream is what we're hearing repeated, because live streaming has to go all the way to the servers and then back out to the internet. Every moment is perfect. Every moment is perfect. Oh, no.
Can you go ahead, Swamiji, now and see?
Okay, well, it just played back what I finished saying a moment ago.
Yeah, I think the problem was the YouTube was coming in. Now I think we should be okay.
Okay, most excellent. All right, so we were looking this weekend. We were just enjoying the Sangha together out there in the Rockies, and enjoying that time with God, and coming into that space of being in touch with this presence, that to enjoy the moment. You know, I heard a wonderful lecture earlier this week by Swami Atmarupananda from the France Center. And I mentioned it in a vlog yesterday, but he had such an intimate way of talking about karma. And he mentioned, that each of us lives in our own universe, that we think of the world as it is within our own head. We've created a model of the universe within which we live. And within that model, we've placed the thought of us, and we live there happily. And that because of that, the karma, the moment that's coming back to you, is a personal mirror of how your actions are creating the world that you live in. And from this real-time interaction between you and the reflection of you in this world, you get a direct feedback about how you're doing, what your prayers are from your actions. And so that's why, just when we were starting, this idea of hearing God, it's anytime you stop and listen, you hear the divine. It's you're getting a live feed of your living reality coming at you in every moment. And so if you're able to sit at any time, you just decide to sit, if you can touch your bliss, if you can find pure contentment in the moment without having to think about what needs to be done or what needs to be attained or what needs to be grabbed or gotten, that is grace. That is the freedom of grace that allows you to do that allows you to detach from your mind and all of its stories and narratives, and the body with all of its demands and hungers and thirsts, and find the peace of the self within. There's a wonderful conversation that happens with Holy Mother around this idea of grace. And someone, while they were sitting there at Jairamati, the Holy Mother turned to her and said, how can we realize God? Is it through worship, or is it through japa, or is it meditation that takes us to God? And Mother says, it's by none of these. The disciple, quite surprised, then how? All right, if that's not the means, how do we get there? And Mother says, God is realized only through his grace. Nonetheless, one must perform japa and meditation, for they remove the impurities of one's mind. One must practice spiritual disciplines such as worship, japa, and meditation. As one gets the fragrance of a flower by handling it, or the scent of sandalwood by rubbing it against a stone, similarly, one becomes spiritually awakened by continuously contemplating on the divine. But you can become illumined right now if you become desireless. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful story here, wonderful unfolding, that this moment is to you what it is based on your ability to accept the grace of God. It's not whether God has given you grace, right? Because Thakur Sri Ramakrishna says that the winds of grace are always blowing. It's up to you to set your sail, right? It's up to you to develop the faith in that grace, to ruminate on that grace until you're filled with the knowledge and absolute knowledge that I'm free. You know, that Mother has set me free in that. Again, I remind people in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, it's one of my favorite verses because it really sets the mood for our practice, where Suzuki reminds the practitioner, we do not sit in order to realize God. We sit to know that we are realized, right? That's a piece of information that comes through us. It's an understanding that is in us, and we are heirs to it. We're not beggars after it. It's yours, and it's fully sitting in you, complete right now. You don't have to build it. You don't have to freshen it. You don't have to do anything to it. It is you. It's the you that is providing the energy for you to move and to speak and to listen and to see and to hear. It's the you that is illuminating the world that you're seeing. Your world is not illumined by suns. You know, this is one of the lies of materialism. One of the most radical things I'll say this morning, probably. But this notion your life is not lit by suns, you know, because all of your observation happens within your head. And the illuminations of all the dreams that happen within the head is the light of awareness, the light of love, the light of Sat Chit Ananda. And so you are surrounded by this light of love, the light you're seeing out my beautiful window here with this wonderful reflections. This is the love of God illuminating the world that you've created within your own mind that you live in, right? And that it's, I'm terribly sorry.
How it looks outside this window?
That this world that you live in is illuminated by the divine love, the divine presence, by the awareness, the light of awareness that creates the world that you're in. And in this awareness of that awareness, this enjoyment of the presence, this enjoyment of the infinite love that is allowed to you within is unlocked by your knowledge and your faith in grace. Your faith and grace, you know, which is the key to everything. It's that knowledge of grace that is key to your freedom. Why? Because Holy Mother says the grace of God is easily obtained because God is so gracious. God is love itself. But the grace of your own mind, where your world exists, the grace of your own mind, which holds the thought of you that you believe is you, the grace of that mind is difficult indeed, she says. And so it's you giving yourself permission to be free, to be enlightened, to see God as he is, or as she is, as that is, and to enjoy your life as conversation. not as a test, not as something you write down and hand into God, but a dance that you performed with the beloved. That it is God enjoying your life within you right now. Your egoism steals all of that and gives it your name and says it's mine, it's me, it's mine. And that is the virus that infects our universe. That's the virus that prevents us from knowing our joy, knowing our freedom, knowing our nature. And it's that me and mine that cause all of our troubles. Everything you read in the news that's uncomfortable for us is a pollutant of me and mine, this selfishness that's caused by our identifying with our body and with our mind. So here Mother is telling us that it's by grace alone that this realization happens. And so when we sit, what do? When we sit, we're not actually the doer, right? We're told by Sri Ramakrishna that the highest truth is that we're not the doers in this world. And so we said, well, how do we meditate then? How do we do anything if we're not the doers? Ours is to make ourselves available, right? You see, as long as we think we're the doers, we're going to interpret the world with us as the doer. We're going to see ourselves doing. But when we withdraw our identity from body and mind, we see that it carries on without us, that our presence is necessary because we are the light of life. We are that Satchitananda. But the story that unfolds does not belong to us. The story that is unfolding is playing on the reflection of the mind when love is refracted through this particular mind and this particular body. It refracts onto the screen of mind the story that you're living, the story with your name on it. And so Mother takes responsibility. If it's her grace that sets us free, and Ramakrishna says it is the divine feminine, it is Shakti that allows us, that gives us permission to realize God, that unlocks the door for us, that the Divine Mother holds that power within her. And she says right here on that same day in Jairambati to this guest that's with her, says that after my meal, I was about to remove the used plate, right? I was about to stand up and take my own dirty plate from the table when the mother prevented me, catching hold of my hand and taking the plate herself. I said, why should you do this, Mother? I shall remove it. At this, she said, what? After all, what have I done for you? A child, as you know, soils the lap of its mother, and how much more besides. You are indeed a rare treasure, even to the gods. This shows the source of grace and the attitude with which it's given. With here, Mother is telling you what happens to you in meditation, the learning, the growth, the transcendence that happens to you during your practice is a gift to you through grace. It's not in reaction to what you're doing or not doing. That's why you have no sense of control of your mind. That's why you have no sense of control of yourself. Sit there and be available to me as your mother, and I'll change your diaper, is what she's saying. It's not the baby's responsibility to do this. Now, I've been repeating this quite a bit in the last few months, pretty much every chance that I get, because this is such an important thing to understand and to see. Because anything that's the result of doing is going to be a product of egoism, right? And so we have to have this sense of surrender in our practice, whether we're gyanis or bhaktis or anything in between. We have to have that sense of surrender, of making ourselves available to the moment, to live in the moment. Because when we go inside and sort out who is me, who is body, who is mind, we find that every desire is prompted by body and mind, right? And that every desire we're led by a hook in the nose, stumbling from one to the next. And the most beautiful thing that we realize within is that none of those desires arise from the self, from the observer, from that which is the true you within there. All of those desires grow out of the mind and grow out of the body, the two elements that are constantly changing within, while the ever-present self is unchanging, sitting there emanating a light. Well, it's not neutral, it's not empty, it's not nothing, right? It's emanating awareness, it's emanating love, it's emanating wisdom in a steady stream, because that's what it is. And our life is that expression. right? So we've got Mother taking care of us. When in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is in the chariot with Krishna, he says, "Behold, Arjuna, there is nothing that I do not possess, and nothing that I want to acquire. And yet I continue to work. If I stopped work for a moment, the whole universe would be destroyed. That which the ignorant do with desire for results and gain, let the wise do without any attachment and without any desire for results and gain." So you see that the Lord is telling us about our true nature. He's positioning it as him speaking as an external to ourselves and telling us, this is the truth of the self within you, right? There is nothing that I do not possess, and there is nothing that I want to acquire, right? So in this world, there is nothing to be done. This world is a dream world, after all. It's the waking dream, right? All the states of awareness are dream states, according to Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. He says this one is just the waking dream, right? And we know how that's true, how we're seeing a symbol of an assumed external world in the mind and living in it by being a thought of ourself among the thoughts of the world within the mind, right? And to see that there's nothing out there for you to get from this universe. There's nothing for you to have from this universe. Everything that you've ever gotten from this universe has run through your fingers. Every single thing that can be gotten from the external world has an expiration date on it, and it will go away utterly and leave nothing of itself behind except a memory. And that memory will nag you for more, constantly and never ending. It will be a constant flow of fulfillment of desire, the following suffering, and then the same introduction of the loop over and over and over and over again. And it's by sitting in awareness and being available to the divine in the present moment that we begin to see that, and we can begin to renounce that because we've seen it and are not interested in it. And at that point is when that self, that emanating light of love within you, begins to express and reach the conscious mind, because the conscious mind is no longer running and grabbing and trying to create a narrative of its happiness. Instead, it's shutting that narrative down and realizing an inherent happiness, an inherent bliss that is the name of the moment, the name of being, right? He says, so that which the ignorant do with desire for results and gain, let the wise do without any attachment and without any desire for results and gain, right? So you're thinking, well, if I have no attachments and no desires for results and gains, I'm not going to do anything. You see, and that is ignorance, because you aren't nothing when the ego isn't acting. You are not nothing when the ego dies. You are Satchitananda. You are that light, and that light will express when you stop the egotistical command of your life. That light will express as pure love spontaneously in the moment. Spontaneously means with no calculation. There will never be anything inauthentic in that moment with you, right? As long as we're ego-driven, as long as we're thinking about what we're going to say, as long as we're thinking about how we're going to tell that person we love them, as long as we're calculating all of this stuff, every bit of that calculation introduces inauthentic things into your stream of thought. Because your authentic love is spontaneous and fresh. It's not something that happens in the mind. It's something that springs from that very center of being, that very center of self. And it's only by backing out of this doership that we can silence that inauthenticity, that hypocrisy that happens when we formulate a thought of ourselves and become a mimic, right? Which is what normal life is. Normal life is a mimic of ourself. We hear ourselves and we act accordingly, but we aren't being, right? Always we take our name. It's like, I'm being Swami C. What we want to do is just be. We don't want to be Swami C. Swami C is a refraction, right? It's a tangling of light, a tangling of Satchitananda. But just being, that with silent mind, removes that virus of me and mine. And finally, God can be seen through looking at you, right? By seeing you, because your actions are spontaneously uncovered, allowed by the escape of the divine straight through you without a refraction. Where does all this bondage come? Because we chain the soul with action. How do we do that? By identifying with body and mind. It's so subtle, it's almost seems impossible because we don't do that inner work. It's very important. I mentioned a few months ago a practice that I had started that has borne so much fruit. And that was going in and just observing, how does my mind work? How do I know when my mind is working? What's the experience of watching my thoughts? How do they form? How are they linked to the body? So that while I'm sitting there being me, I get to understand how the body informs the mind and how the mind informs the body and how together they create a narrative. And I'm just the witness of that narrative. I'm not necessary to it. I'm just the witness of it. And it plays out. And you think, how can that possibly be? We step once again into that dream world, right? You do this every night. You create a thought of yourself and place it within your dream world, and you live as a completely different being in that world. And that being is not a doer. It's not doing anything. It's moving thoughts around. That's all it's doing. It's moving amongst thoughts. So nothing is being accomplished, but there's an awareness of a passage of time and effort and karma even. And then you awaken from that and you step into this world, right? In this world, we often think that we're seeing it directly because we don't think about it. When we think about it, we see that we're not seeing or hearing or tasting or touching anything. We're being informed by a body that we assume is in an external world that gives us all of this information through the senses, right? But we exist in the mind. Everything is mind, right? Krishna goes on and tells Arjuna, therefore, Arjuna, all these actions are in nature. Nature is working out her own laws in our bodies and minds. We identify with ourselves with nature and say, I am doing this. This is the way that delusion seizes us, right? So the body and mind are carrying on their own narrative based within time, space, causation. So everything has a cause and everything has an effect, which is necessary for it to carry on doing what it's doing. Your mind excreting that thought that you're not in charge of, right? One thought always coming out of the previous thought, and you just watch it as the observer. And if you just watched it and let it go, you'd be free. But you watch it, you get interested. Why? Because you think it's yours. Oh, that's my thought. I like that one. Oh, no, not that one. Oh, stay away from that one. And you collect an arbitrary bouquet of thoughts, an arbitrary collection of attributes for yourself from your mind, your favorite memories, which really aren't memories, but reconstructions of them, right? You grab your favorite memories, your favorite ideas, and you make sure to include the things you don't like. Nope, not that one and not that one, but those three, those will do. And what do you have? Then you've got a collection called a personality. And that personality is what you've identified with and what you love so much. And it's just a collection of restrictions, right? And limitations, attributes. If you're this, you're not that, right? And so by identifying with this mind, that's how we're bound, right? Because when you identify with the mind, freedom changes its definition. When you identify with mind, the definition of freedom becomes, I get to do whatever I want, right? Because you've accepted the first round of bondage, which is, I want. And after you've accepted that, your ego then creates a new definition for freedom so that you are not aware that you're bound. Because if you were aware that you were bound, you would want to be free, right? And so the ego covers over that by saying, no, I can give you anything you want, right? And here's the list of wants. And they just arise, one after the other after the other. We've got the hook in our nose, and we go forward. Krishna goes on, he says, we always act under some compulsion. When hunger compels me, I eat. When suffering is still worse, slavery. That real I is eternally free. And what does eternally free mean? Eternally free means no desire. There is no lack. There is no discontent in the self. That's why when you go inside and watch carefully, you see all desires arising from the body-mind. No desire arises from the self in there. What can compel it to do anything? The sufferer is in nature. It is only when we identify ourselves with the body that we say, I am suffering, or I am Mr. So-and-so. All such nonsense. But he who has known the truth holds himself aloof. Whatever his body does, whatever his mind does, he does not care. And that is a staggering statement right there. Unfortunately, we've heard it before. And when we've heard things before, the mind, the ego likes to dull them down a little bit. Oh, we've heard that before. And then it can discount what it says. It doesn't think about what it says because I've already done that. But you haven't read this before. This moment is eternally new. And this is the first time in this context that Mother is telling you directly, whatever your body does, whatever your mind does, is not of concern. Be disinterested. Through being disinterested, the mind will calm, the mind will silence. By being disinterested and by discerning all of these realities of how the mind and body work, that's where we find our willingness to renounce, right? That's where we find our willingness to renounce. And at that moment, when that willingness to renounce arises, then grace is present. Grace is being used, right? The mind is turning toward that grace to put that buffer between me and the doership, to hold that space clear so that I can't be affected by that wrong thinking that I'm the doer, right? The body knows it needs food. It tells the mind what kind of food it wants and at what time. The mind knows how to use the body to get that food, that gets that body the food, right? And then one day the battery's taken out and the body mind just drop and they no longer do any of their thing. But that battery was only necessary for the Satchitananda, the power that it provided to the engine of the body mind, right? But it never was the body mind. When you take that battery out, if it's still alive, it's still alive when it separates from body mind. So Satchitananda is just like that. It's relationship with the body. But it has this amazing ability to change identities, which again we experience at night when we sleep, right? How you can go to bed as Vance Greenway and awake in your dream as a butterfly or a stone or whatever it is that you're in your dream. And you'll think it utterly real. And the dream will present a series of images to you that are disconnected and make no sense at all, but your mind will weave a narrative. And you won't be aware of the nonsense until you awaken the next morning and then try and tell your roommate about the dream. And you realize, well, actually, it didn't make any sense at all as you sit there and try and tell it in the waking world, right? So this compulsion through this identity with body mind, thinking that they're your thoughts and your desires, you know, the body gets hungry and you say, I'm hungry. The mind is in a bad mood, you say, I'm in a bad mood, right? The mind and body are tired, you say, I'm tired. And that's why we've talked once before about the importance of vocabulary. Stop saying, I'm tired. Start saying the body is tired. The mind is in a mood, right? Keep them at arm's length from you. Don't lull yourself into identifying with them, because that's where your bondage lays. That's where your lack of understanding lays. That's where your suffering is happening and why it's coming to you, right? So disconnect from it. It doesn't mean that you will not care, right? In the sense of that you'll get sloppy and lazy about things, because that's not your nature. Your nature is Satchitananda. What's going to happen is when you stop caring, when you stop being attached to body and mind, love expresses. And when love expresses, it does things for love. And when things are done for love, look at the world. See how beautiful are the things that were done for love. See how beautiful they are. You know, the things that were created for the sake of love. The Taj Mahal, you know, all of the art in the world, the beautiful old architectures in the old world, you know, things that money can't buy. when you spend time working on something that if you were to calculate the cost of the hours that you invested, and if you did it for that money, you would never be able to sell it because it would be so expensive. But if you did it for love, that's the beautiful thing about doing crafts and whatnot, is when you make something, there's just something about making it with your own self and putting your own best effort into it, that suddenly it becomes something you want someone else to have, something that you want to give, something that you want to share. And the money, you just don't care. You're like, I don't care, whatever you want. You can pay me, no worries, right? That's working in freedom. That's working in life. That's escaping bondage. That's accepting grace, the grace of your own mind, to let go of your karmas, to stop feeling the moment as inadequate or imperfect, and to stop trying to constantly change the present to be comfortable to the body and to the mind, because the present will never be comfortable to the body and mind, because the present is of the nature of God, the nature of spirit, right? And to the nature of spirit, everything is already perfect. Everything is as it should be. But body mind, which lives in time, can never be perfect. It's always changing. Things are always moving. So those rare moments where we get our body comfortable in bed, we won't wake up in the same position. Why? Because the body will automatically get uncomfortable. You can't find that one position which is always comfortable for the body or for the mind. Right? So he says, I am without beginning. He's talking about the self, the real self within you as the divine. I am without beginning. I am birthless, the absolute Lord of all creation. I, through my own nature, take form. Whenever virtue subsides and wickedness prevails, I come to help mankind for the salvation of the good and for the destruction of wickedness. For the establishment of spirituality, I come from time to time. Whosoever wants to reach me through whatsoever ways, I reach him through that. But no, Arjuna, none can ever swerve from my path. None ever did. How can we? None swerves from his path, right? So you are on your path, and your path is directly toward realization. If you live with that awareness, the awareness of your own nature, that path will grow shorter and shorter and shorter. The end will come quicker. That goal of freedom, of the perfection of love, the loss of selfishness and suffering will come quicker as you live with that awareness of yourself as being independent from all of this. And you take the help of the beloved who comes regularly as Buddha, as Rama, as Krishna, as Jesus, as Ramakrishna, as Holy Mother. That the divine has come so many times in so many different ways with so many different stories. Why? Because there's so many different of us. There's so many different of us. And the Lord says, reach for me in any way. Reach for me in any way that you feel inspired to do. Reach toward me with any authenticity, with any love, and I will reach you that way, right? I will reach you that way. Now, that's not to say the path you choose will be painless. Normally, when we start with ego and start seeking God through the ego, there's a lot of pain to come, right? Because that ego has to be chipped away. The ego is the virus. That sense of I am the doing is the virus. And to get rid of that is sometimes a rather difficult treatment, something that's very hard to go through, humiliating sometimes. That's what the stage of brahmacharya in the monastery is all about. That whittling away of egoism. Right? So we are on this path to God, and God is bringing us there. And we take this ride in awareness. The awareness is the key to this ride, because it will constantly betray to us what is real and what is not real. That which is changing is not real. That's the part of the thought world. That which changes is only a part of the thought world. That which is unchanging is a part of our inner world, right? Is our inner world. And so the thought world changes. That's how you know you're in thought world, is when there's constant change, constant unrepeating change. But you know that you're in the free world when you are in the self, and that sense of love that's slipping in from the unchanging through the shrine of the heart, that becomes reality. That's where we find our contentment. That's where we come to know the real. And it's bigger than the changing world. It actually is the container of the changing world. Vivekananda goes on and says, there is a man stealing there. Why does he steal? You punish him. Why can you not make room for him and put his energy to work? You say you are a sinner, and many will say he has broken the law. All this herd of mankind is forced into uniformity, and hence all trouble, sin, and weakness. The world is not as bad as you think. It is we fools who have made it so evil. We manufacture our own ghosts. We manufacture our own demons, and then we cannot get rid of them. We put our hands before our eyes and we cry, somebody give us light. Fools, take your hands away from your eyes. That is all there is to it, right? And what are the hands to the eyes? Those are the multiple stories that you apply to yourself all the time. You know, you want to know your biggest stories, write your dating ad. You want to list out all of your attachments, write out your dating app profile. You know, all the things that you like, all the things that you don't like, and you're looking for someone who fits perfectly into those likes and dislikes, somebody who can give you what you're looking for, and you're doomed from the very beginning, because nobody's going to fit into your likes and dislikes, because they're ever changing and always moving. Nobody is going to give you what you're looking for, because what you're looking for is yourself, your freedom, your inner light, that steady flow of love that has your name on it. That's what you seek. Your own grace is what you're looking for. And nobody can give that to you. That has to come from within yourself, right? And all the reasons that your mind comes up with on why that's difficult or why it can't be done, those are your demons and your ghosts, and you have made them up. And it is up to you to conquer them. So if you have called them unconquerable, if you have called them too strong or too much, then you yourself have written the loss of your own battle, right? You must be careful about the things that you say, because you will have to live them, right? And so I always tell people, and they say, oh, my practice, my spiritual life is so difficult. Meditation is so hard. My mind is so noisy. There you are. That is your story. That's why it's that way, because that's what you tell yourself, right? That's why Vivekananda says, repeat constantly, I am ever free. I am ever pure. I'm ever blissful. I've never been born. I will never die. I am that one without a second, pure love, pure wisdom, pure being, right? We return to that story, that isness, right? The story that we tell every time we can, every time we write a song, we write about love, right? Every plot to every movie always has love in there and the quest for it somewhere. We're looking for that. We're looking for that endless spring of love that is your soul, yourself. It's spilling into this body. He whose efforts are bereft of all desire and selfishness has burned all this bondage of action with the fire of knowledge. He is wise, right? So burned all of this action, right? So we are free of desire, because we know that there's nothing to get, right? There's nothing to get from this world. What is there to desire? I've watched one Mercedes rust into the junkyard. Why do I need to watch a second one do it? Right? It's like all the world is like that. Learn from it and let it go, right? Love it continuously, but not to get anything from it. Love because it's your nature to love. Alleviate suffering because it's your nature to alleviate suffering, not because of anything. Nothing else is necessary. He whose efforts are bereft of all desire and selfishness That person has burned this bondage of action with the fire of knowledge, knowing he's not the doer, knowing nothing can be done, knowing that all is a result of compulsion, right? You smell pizza, now you want pizza, right? You see a beautiful person, now you want a beautiful person. You remember a beautiful thing, now you want that beautiful thing. The television shows you the thing you can't live without, and now you can't live without, right? You sit just one thing after the other, and you think you're free. Oh, free will. Oh, free will. Free will. You're following one prompt after another. You're running after suggestions, a constant flow of unchanging suggestions, running and running and running and running, none of them giving you what you're looking for, all of them expiring from underneath you. It's a constant game of keeping all the plates spinning in the air, one desire after another. You buy that house, you just get it paid off, and suddenly the roof falls in and a tree knocks out your left wing. What are you going to do now? Oops. Right? Round and round it goes. At some point, understand that and let it be and laugh your way through it, because you are free and it really ultimately has no effect on you. He says, it is a tremendous error to feel helpless. Do not seek help from anyone. We are our own help. If we cannot help ourselves, there is none to help us. Thou thyself art thine only friend, and thou thyself art thine only enemy. There is no other enemy but this self of mine, no other friend but myself. This is the last and greatest lesson, and oh, what a time it takes to learn it. We seem to get hold of it, and then the next moment the old wave comes. The backbone breaks. We weaken and again grasp for that superstition, that superstitious help. Just think of what that huge mass of misery, and all caused by this false idea of going to seek for help, right? And you think, my God, what does, that's dark. It's not, it's beautiful. What's it saying? You don't need help because there's nothing wrong. Sit, be silent. Let these demons come apart of their own accord within your mind. Sit in the light of that grace, that light of love, and know that you're observing. Know that you're witnessing. Know that all of this is unfolding according to a nature that includes all, the nature of love and wisdom. And as you identify more and more with spirit and less with body-mind, you will find that you're in harmony with everything. You'll find that you'll see and sense a oneness, a stillness behind everything. It'll no longer be the anxiety and constant change and nervousness of the flow at the top of the water where all the waves are. Now, as you've come down into the self and known where you are in there, and are able to see yourself not as the body and not as the mind and not as the changing, then you come to the bottom of the pool where it's absolutely silent. All the splashing happening above here, but undisturbed. You sit in that peace, quiet and privacy of a whole universe to yourself. And then you act from there: kindness, strength, steadiness, fullness, not as an effort, not as a calculation, but as an overflowing of the divine nature of what you are, of what you've always been, of what you've always hoped. He who has really prayed to the Master even once has nothing to fear. By praying to him constantly, one gets ecstatic love through his grace. As all clouds are blown away by the wind, so the thirst for the material pleasures will be driven away by the utterance of the divine name. Right? This grace is yours. It's already assured. And your sitting for your practice is not a building, not a grabbing, not a running to get. It's an acceptance. It's accepting the gift and fighting the ego as it demands that you must earn it. Fighting the ego as it constantly comes up with a story of why you can't have it, of what you need to do to get it. It's having a faith greater than your ego, a faith in the nature of all things as the divine, the nature of love, the nature of wisdom and being, and to understand there is nothing else but being what you are. That is what life is about. It's not a story, it's not an arc of a theme, it's being what you are, steadily in the moment. Light, love, wisdom. All right. Shall we open it up for any questions, if there's any, or comments or concerns, corrections? Good stories.
Swami, namaste.
Yeah.
Just a question. When in the end you were saying that, if I'm sort of paraphrasing that, have faith, do everything that you can yourself. I mean, not as the doer, but you do. Don't depend. But when your body and the mind, due to age, sort of comes to the point where you are not able to do, hopefully with the spiritual practice internally, you maybe have surrendered and calm, but you have to kind of depend on others to do your daily activities of daily living and giving you the care. At that point, how do we not feel that you're being a burden?
Because if you are being a burden because you feel like you've manipulated these people by your lack of ability into helping you, right? So you see yourself as being a burden. If, however, you were living as Satchitananda, where you were just giving, just caring, just loving, just being, people are going to take care of you of their own accord. You're of value in their life. You're beautiful in their life. They want to serve you. They want to be that for you. I'm at the easy end of old age right now. I'm turning 60, which means I'm just thinking about it more than it's affecting me. But the thing that I see is that what you need to carry into old age with you is definitely a sense of grace, but much more than that is just a sense of humor. It's like, be entertained. You can see that the body is failing because you are not, right? You can see that the body is becoming old and weak because you are not. You are still observing and are as fresh inside as you've ever been. You're still the same person you were when you were 12 or 15 or 20, right? Just watching through a world. And now you're getting a lot of static in the image, as you're watching the world, you're getting a lot of muscle pain, a lot of neck pain, and all of those things start coming in and starts fuzzing out. But it's know that God is taking care of you. It is God who sees you as, just like what we started off there. Our mother is telling that person, her disciple, you are a treasure, even to the gods. You have no idea who you are. You do not have any idea of your beauty and your worth and your value, right? Because we've spent our lives thinking that we were needy, thinking that we were broken, thinking that we had needed something to make us whole. And through that quest of searching and not finding and searching and not finding, we've grown bitter and alone and isolated and disillusioned, right? We have to let go of all of that. That's where grace comes in. We have to let go of all of those failed stories. And then we have to let go of the story and return to being, return to here. One of my favorite sayings lately is, don't let the not here, not now infect your here and now, right? So if your boss ruined your day by yelling at you at work, don't bring that home with you. Your boss is not in your living room, so that argument shouldn't be there either, right? Be with your living room. Be with what is, and keep your world to what is. It's simpler that way, it's freer that way, and it puts you in touch with wonder. It puts you in touch with simple things. It puts you in touch with people. It puts you in touch with the room you're in. And in there is where you will find your greatest fulfillment. Just in that being. Become aware of why Mother calls you a treasure to the gods. Become aware that you are made from Satchitananda and know what that means. Investigate that and find it in yourself. None of this is conjecture. None of this is believing something. None of this is just a philosophy. All of this is what becomes apparent to you when you go inside and observe carefully. The truth will reveal itself to you. And the sages say, you are that. You are that freedom. You are what you seek. It's the seeking itself that has prevented you from enjoying it. Because to seek, you have to assume you don't have it. To be guilty, you have to assume there's no grace. Right? It's always the assumptions that get us in trouble. Let go of them.
And by the way, anyway, we are gonna get a new. And by the way, anyway, we're gonna get a new body next life, correct? So why to worry?
Well, there's no worrying. You don't have to get a new body. That's up to you whether you choose one or not. You know, and it is not worrying, but it's also not projecting problem. You know, express your nature, and that is all that's required, and that will make life fulfilling. That will make you the best employee in the building, right? No longer trying to do things for results, but doing things in excellence from the motive of love within yourself. So everything is done with perfection. Everything is done with attention. Everything is done very carefully. Laziness is never considered because it belongs to body, right? Belongs to mind. So we just express continually, and through that expression of Satchitananda, we work the hardest. We're the most honest. We're helpful to everyone. We're constantly looking for opportunities to serve. We're joyful because we're not caught up in the stress of getting or failing. We're being the best we can in the moment with all that we have in the moment, and offering it continually, letting go of it continually, right? That's what brings success. That's what brings beauty. That's what brings life. That's what takes away the chokehold of anxiety. I've seen crazy. Yes.
You know, something about grace. I would like to share a small incident of a life of Papa Ramdas. You know, he was a saint who lived. This is 1920s, and he lived. He was from Karnataka, and then he had ashram in Kerala. But when he was wandering, you know, he was completely. There was no personal will he followed.
Right.
So when he was traveling once, he came out of a train station, and he had no money, obviously. So he sat on a rock outside the train station. Now, back in those days, 105 years ago, there was trees and rocks outside the train stations in India. But that's where he sat on a rock, and he started chanting the name of Ram, you know, and because that's what it was practice. And he had not eaten anything since the previous day lunch. And he writes all that. And he said, I was hungry and thirsty, but I kept on chanting the name of Lord. I got up at 6 o'clock, wherever he was sleeping, and he sat on the rock and he started chanting. 6 hours passed, 7 hours passed. And at 1 o'clock, a guy came and he said, you know, Maharaj, are you hungry? And he said, yes. And so he gave him water and 2 plantains. And so, you know, all his life, that whole book, you know, In the Quest of God, and then there are 2 parts of the book. He talks about this grace all the time, where that grace came at the end, always, like when he was hungry, thirsty, or whatever. And so, you know, now obviously when you know, it's my favorite book, and obviously I cannot be something like that as you know, renunciate as he was to that extent. But in my own life, I look at it and I say, you know, whenever I'm pushed to a corner where there is no chance, then I just pray, and then the grace does come. And I think what I've also learned is that maybe from life of saints, if you read their lives, these little things which come to us from their lives, where the grace came in their life, it's an inspiration, and it also teaches us that how we can lead a pure life or try to give up, you know. and then the grace will come. So it's very inspirational.
Yes. Yeah, there's a few things in there though. You define yourself as separate from the saint because you can't have that renunciation or that level of whatnot. Be careful, that's a story that you created for yourself right there, because you can experience that and it doesn't belong in the scripture. It's not. We read those stories and we think it's the quality of the man that made things that way. It's the love of God that makes things that way. Right. And the thing is, I just spent 2 years in Colorado. I showed up there with $79. I never asked for money. My room was costing $750 a month. The food I was eating was costing $500 a month. From $79, I lived for 2.5 years. By the grace of the beloved, coming through all of the devotees, but never because it was asked. It was purely voluntary. I never ever asked for a nickel of that. I went to Mother quite often in my prayers, showing her the situation, but not asking. I didn't ask. I thought if the money dries up, that means I'm not supposed to be here. And if I'm not supposed to be here, I don't want to be here. So it's like I just always listened, but all that money comes. And so I know these things to be real, not for sages and saints of the scriptures, but for you and me who's willing to stand on it, willing to step out and say, yes, grace has covered me. All will be well. And you have to be ready. Like when I made that commitment, I would meditate about sleeping under a bridge. I would sit there and prepare myself, because if you step out the door into the pure world of Mother, take care of me, she may put you under a bridge. She may not keep you in a bed with covers and a pillow. She may put you outside, but you have to accept that. And through that acceptance, it becomes fine. You're like, yeah, that would be fine, because I know that I would still have my inner world as it is. And my inner world is my life. My inner world is what makes me happy, is what brings joy spontaneously, is what makes me content. Not what I'm eating, not where I'm sitting, not the comforts of the body. That's all accepted as it is, right? Because those are not the measures of my joy, the measures of my contentment, nor the measures of my comfort. All of that is myself. Right?
But Maharaj, in this context, I think also Swamiji was telling, and when the karma pal is coming, say that saint may have a previous karma pal. That's the reason he got the grace. And I may not have, I am having a separate karma pal. So I may not get that grace. So I think sometimes in that way. So is that right way? No, it is not the right way of thinking. What is the best way of thinking in that sort of situation?
Yes. Well, the best way of thinking is to understand karma does not define you. Right? Karma is the only point of karma is to make you understand that you're in charge of it. Right? What you're doing right now is creating your tomorrow. What you're doing right now is creating your habits that you're going to live through life. The whole theory of karma is to teach you that right now is what matters. Do your very best. Plant love, plant wisdom, plant being in this moment. Be present, be mindful. Your karma, you're the one holding on to your karma. It's a self-fulfilled punishment. By identifying with body and identifying with mind, you get the karma of a body and mind, but it's only because you won't let go. Right? That's the grace is what relieves you of your karma. It's not that it fixes your karma, it's that it helps you see that it's not your karma. It belongs to the body and mind, and the body and mind are going to roll it out whether you think you're the doer or not. And if you understand you're not the doer, then you'll know I am the self. I cannot be burned. I cannot be wedded. Nothing can affect me in that sense. It's been only by choice that I've been affected by the conditions of body, mind, through identity that I've become concerned about them. So your karma is separate from you. It's not your karma as soon as you let go of it. Right? And it's the grace of your own mind that will allow you to do that. The grace of God, of course. In every incarnation, he comes to tell you, I've got it. I'll take it from you. Put your burden on me. All you who are weary and heavy laden, come to me and I will give you rest. Take refuge in me alone, right? All of the incarnations have said this. So you have the grace of God. You are what you are and will never be different, but you will only think yourself different and changed. You will only think yourself doing and suffering. So you, in this moment, when you sit down, challenge that notion that I can't meditate. Challenge that notion that I suffer, right? Go inside and see what's really going on. Where is that suffering coming from? All suffering comes from attachment. Where is that attachment? There it is. Detach. You are free. It's not a condition that you're going to become. It's what you are. You are that, not you're going to be that. You are that. Accept it. The winds of grace are blowing. If you can't accept it, look more carefully. Why am I holding on to this? Why can't I let go of that? Why is that important to me? Right? Start asking those inner questions. First, see them. That's why we have to spend time inside so we can see. These truths are self-evident. They arise. They don't happen because we believe in them. They're there and we see them. Right? So this inner freedom is yours now. Be desireless. How to be desireless? Observe, where are the desires arising from? See that they're just a hook in the nose. They're not something that you're determining ahead of time. They're always the result of a compulsion, a smell, a touch that sparked a memory, which sparks an inspiration, which sparks an idea of fulfillment, right? And then you have to set about to work to create an imagined fulfillment that isn't going to last. Come back to the moment. Be where you are right now. All is well. All is perfect. Accept it. And take what's given to you and create beauty with it in response. There's no other reason for life but that. You come in naked, you leave burned up or buried. Presumably more than naked, eventually just your bones.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes. All right.
If
Go
nobody
forward.
Zoom has a question, I have a quick question.
Mm.
When you were talking about memories, you said something about they're not really memories, but reconstruction of them. Can
Mm-hmm.
you clarify that? Because any memory is a reconstruction. So what's the difference?
Yes. Well, there really is. Memory is it's a memory of story. It's not a memory of what happened. This is quite clear when you start. Just set up some experiments. And have a conversation with a friend on purpose, and then talk to them about that conversation the next day. It's like it'll be a loose approximation of what that conversation was, and then come back in a week and pull that memory up again of that conversation, and it becomes even a looser recollection of what was said, and we'll clump into sort of just generalized ideas. Come back in a year and see what's left of that memory. And the more you tell that memory, the more it changes. Little facts get added, little things get omitted. You tell it at a dinner party and it has to become more entertaining. So you give it a little flash and color, and then you tell it 3 more times, and suddenly that's what you remember, but that's not what ever happened. So memory is a construction. Memory is our attachments. Memory is where we store the things we don't want to let go of. And so it's because of memory that the moment doesn't look perfect to us. Because I smell pizza in the moment, I have the memory of eating pizza and I liked it and I'll enjoy it. There's no pizza in the moment, I must manifest pizza. So now I need my future. My future is where I draw up my plans for what? My desires. So your future is composed of your desires, your past is composed of your attachments, and this little sliver of being gets completely ignored in between as we bounce back and forth between our attachments and our desires, attachments and desires, always forgetting to be full, to be present.
But
So,
is
yeah.
memory also important in doing your discrimination? Like memory of all these talks and the learning and the reading,
Um,
and don't you bring that memory to get rid of the other memories?
Yes, I mean, while you're believing yourself to be in mind in the world, yes, you have to use the mind to help yourself find your way out. But one of the things that you remember is that you are not the mind, right? And you are not the thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And you begin to observe them, which means you step outside of mind, right? And so then when you begin to step outside of mind and you begin to observe without attachment, the rest of it comes apart of its own accord. You know, the rest of it becomes obvious and begins to establish you as the witness in the body, the witness of the mind. And so the mind and body then begin to establish you as the self, right? Once you step outside and start observing with any success, all the lessons come to you, all the realizations, that the things you couldn't hear because of the noise in mind start to make themselves apparent to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji.
Jai Ma. Yes.
If nobody has any questions, we can say our closing prayer.